We're going to update on a recent arrest and investigation that was made here in Lincoln a few days ago. We have with us Chief Teresa Ewens, Assistant Chief Jason Stilley, and Captain Jake Dilsaver that will be speaking today.
They say there's no disturbance.
Good morning. As Officer Parker mentioned, also present with me is Chief Teresa Ewens, also Captain Jake Dilsaver to my right, your left, who is in charge of our Special Victims Unit, who handles sexual assault victims of sex assaults of children. And that unit is responsible for this ongoing investigation. So the purpose of the press conference today is to provide some details into that investigation and also announce the arrest of Mensah, M-E-N-S-A-H, Gozo, G-O-Z-O, who is a 59-year-old male resident. He was originally arrested for kidnapping and sexual assault of a child. He has since been charged with one count of sexual assault of a child and one count of child enticement. In order to give some order to this press conference, I will make a few general comments about the timeline. I will turn it over to Captain Jake Dilsaver to talk about some of the resources that are available in our city. So on July 24th, Sunday at approximately 10 a.m., we were made aware of a missing person case in the area of First and Cornhusker. Officers responded and found that a 12-year-old girl had left the home and she had since not returned, and the parents were worried. We began relentlessly searching for her, and slightly before 12 noon that same day, she had been returned into the area of her home by Gozo. As part of the investigation, when youth are out of care of their parents or other responsible caregivers, we start to ask a series of questions, and it was based on that line of questioning and that trajectory of that investigation that led us to believe that the 12-year-old girl was transported someplace else in the city, was harmed, and ultimately we had determined that Gozo transported her to his home, subjected her to sexual contact and sexual penetration, and then ultimately returned her to the area of her home. Gozo was arrested later that day without incident, and he was transported to the Lancaster County Jail, where again I mentioned he had been charged with kidnapping and sexual assault of a child. Since then, he has been charged in court with one count of sexual assault of a child and one count of child enticement. This investigation is ongoing. Anyone with information is asked to contact us at 402-441-6000. They can also remain anonymous if they wish to do so, and can contact Crime Stoppers at 402-475-3600. Before I turn it over to Captain Dilsaver to talk about the resources that are available in our community, I will say that the decision to come forward and do a press conference on this case is agonizing, because we are in the victim and survivor business. So our hearts and attention is really on the victim and the victim's family right now. However, we also recognize that this individual could be responsible for other cases. While we don't have details right now that we can share on that, or if any can be made available, we do want to make sure that the public is aware. And so anyone that's had any contact with Mr. Gozo is asked to come forward. Please keep and respect the privacy of the family at this time. Also, I'd like to turn it over to Captain Dilsaver to talk about the resources that are available for anybody that's suffering from sexual assault in our community.
Thank you. My name is Jake Dilsaver, the captain of the Special Victims Unit here at Lincoln Police Department. To Assistant Chief Stilley's point, these are difficult cases. The effects are long-standing from victims' families, survivors of abuse. There are a lot of resources that are locally available. The Child Advocacy Center is a great place to start. Department of Health and Human Services. We have Hope Spoke here. We have Voices of Hope. The Friendship Home, and the police department here has a victim assistance unit that would be available as well. I'd be remiss not to mention the great work of a lot of police officers Sunday morning that were helping look for this child. The investigators in the Special Victims Unit that have been working tirelessly since this case on Sunday morning. And we, again, just reiterate the request to be considerate for the families that are involved in these kind of cases. Thank you.
And with that, that concludes our prepared remarks. If anybody has any questions.
What would be your advice for parents if they want to talk with their children about some like potential risks or just the things that happen out there? If they happen to see this on the news, what would be your message to parents about how they can approach that conversation?
I think I would say, and certainly Jake can chime in, that it really does start before the event, and you need to have an open dialogue with your kids about a number of things. This is just one of those many things, is what to do if someone approaches you, who you can talk to, and if something happens to them, and just keep that open dialogue. But certainly, if Jake has anything to add, he can certainly do so.
You said, did this guy know this gal at all, or the family?
As part of the investigation, we look into any prior relationship, and at this time, we haven't established one, but that doesn't mean that one doesn't exist. So the investigation does continue, and that's one of the aspects that we're trying to hammer home.
So do you think this guy was just cruising around looking for somebody to kidnap?
At this time, that's pretty much the trajectory that the investigation is taking, but I don't have enough details to say that that's absolutely the case.
Do you believe this is an isolated incident, or like are there other reports of something similar that you think could be related?
Again, this is a very difficult decision to come forward with this, because we are trying to respect the survivor's family and their privacy. We also want to make sure that it is an isolated event and that we don't have other victims out there. So it's very important, and we're asking for the public's assistance if they have any similar events. If there's people that believe that this is a similar event and they haven't come forward, there are avenues to come forward to us and tell us about those cases.
What do we know about Mr. Gozo? How long has he been in Lincoln, and what kind of job or position does he have that might have put him in contact with children?
Certainly that's part of the investigation, but I don't have those answers right now for you today.
Is there a reason why you think there might be more victims out there?
Certainly it's hard for us to wrap our mind around an event as a parent. I look at and this is quite possibly the worst thing that could happen, is that you find your child missing and you realize that they've been harmed, right? And so based on how things unfolded, it's a possibility that this could be a one-off, an isolated event, but there's also the possibility that exists that it could have happened in the past. So this is one of the things that we would like the public's help on to figure out.
So can you comment anything? It appears that he had a change of clothes for her.
I can tell you that the clothing that she was found in when she was returned home were not the same clothes that she left in.
And she doesn't own that clothes, or the family says that's not her clothes?
Certainly, that's pieces of the investigation. Again, so we always walk a line when we come forward and we take questions and start to outline an investigation. If there are other potential victims out there, and I'm not saying that there are or there aren't, that's something that we would like to know. We want to make sure that the story that they tell us, that the facts that they remember are their own and not something that we provide in a press conference. And so certainly I want to make sure that we don't provide any details that could taint someone else's recollection of a set of events when they come forward.
Do you think there's any ongoing concern with him behind bars?
I don't have any ongoing concern, but I am always concerned for the safety of my children, and I'm sure other parents are as well. And so just safety measures that you can take, making sure that you have the ability to contact your children and knowing where they're at, who they're going with, is always very important.
I don't recall recently any stranger, danger type of things like this. When was the last time you had something like this in Lincoln?
That's a great question. I don't know. Now, we do deal with suspicious vehicle calls and suspicious person calls. Not necessarily related to this, but when we get those calls, and it's very important to contact us when we have those concerns, we can go out and verify that it's someone that's unknown to the area, but there's a reason why they're there. Sometimes we do find people that are, that may be up to nefarious activities, whether it's scoping out a bank for a bank robbery or waiting to commit some other crime. So I think the best advice that I could have for the public, if it doesn't feel right, certainly call us and we can come out and check it out. There's no harm in that.
And did you have any kind of call in that area on Sunday, or was your first, call the first service there on the missing child?
The first call for us that I'm aware of was the missing child.
And did you have any other contacts with this particular guy? Was he on your radar at all?
I won't go into that piece of it. Certainly not. We've had contacts, but certainly not to this level. No. Okay, thank you for your time.